Recording. Perfect. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the session on Meetup. This is a very, very informal session. The reason that Paula and I are presenting this is that Paula and I belong to the same club called PMI WDC #1. And we not only had, but we continue to have tremendous success using Meetup. And what we want to do tonight is simply share with you what we do with our club that makes it work. And hopefully you can use the same techniques, the same tricks, the same everything, so that it also helps you and your club to attract new members. Now, just a few things. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to ask everyone to be on camera. And here's why. This session is going to be somewhat interactive, and I thank you so much. And because of that, Paula and I during the session will call on you. Say, Marcia, what do you think about this? Or what's the answer to this question? But don't worry, we're not here to stump you. We're not here to embarrass you. We're just simply here to help the meeting be engaged. So I appreciate that you are on camera for those that can be. Paula and I are going to continue to add people as they come in, and lots of people are coming in right now, just to let you know. And let's see, what else? One of the things that we will do is, don't worry about the slide deck. Paula has your email addresses for everyone who signed up through Eventbrite, and we will send off the slide deck to you. So don't have to worry about that. And during our session, we encourage everyone to ask questions. Paula and I may or may not be able to catch the questions on chat as quickly. So if there is a question during any of our slides, to simply just unmute yourself and just ask your question. Okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let me find the PowerPoint. Here we go. And I'm going to do this. Okay. Before we get started, are there any questions that you may have about this particular presentation? Okay, there we go. Paula, all yours.
All right. So what is Meetup? That's the first thing that we want to discuss, because everyone may or may not be familiar with exactly what Meetup is. It is a website that allows users to organize get-togethers with others who enjoy the same activities. You may be very familiar with Meetup in other capacities. For example, if you're an avid hiker, if you are into crafts, if you are into dancing, certain types of music, Meetup has groups for any and all interests. So for those of you who are not familiar with Meetup, that is the basic definition. If you are not already a Toastmaster, how are you going to find Toastmasters clubs? What do you think you're going to do? How are you going to find it? Edmund?
So instead of me asking, I'm going to ask folks here in the audience. I'm going to ask Judy Maggio. Judy, how do people typically find a Toastmasters club if they are not already a Toastmaster?
Well, I can tell you how I found the Toastmasters Club. I Googled.
Googling, okay.
I Googled and I put in Toastmasters clubs in Stafford County. And
Perfect.
That's how I found them.
Perfect. Michelle Matthews, same question for you. What would you use? How would you find a Toastmasters club if you weren't a member of Toastmasters already?
Thank you, Edmund. I would go to the toastmasters.org website, and you can click on the find a club, and then you just put in your zip code and it tells you what clubs are in the area and when they meet.
Perfect.
And Ben had his hand raised.
Ben, how would you find a Toastmasters club if you weren't already in the Toastmasters?
Well, I'm already in a group. I'm in multiple Toastmasters group. One of my Toastmasters group I'm part of, I am with the Ally Alliance, and then I'm
Okay.
with Adult Social Group,
Okay.
and I'm with a group, a longtime friend of mine. I can go on and on with her, but I'm in her group. She runs a Toastmasters group too.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ben. Ron, how would you find a Toastmasters club if you were not already a Toastmasters?
You're on mute, Ben or Ron.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes, much better.
If I knew someone who were a Toastmaster, I would ask him or her.
That's a great question. That's a great answer. Okay. So the one thing that we were looking for was something that Judy Maggio said is lots of people just use Google. Right. And so here's an example of if somebody decided to just do a Google on Toastmasters Club, McLean, Virginia. And what I want to show you, this is a screenshot from May of 2022. And what you see here is, well, this is a screenshot. You see Toast of Tyson's Corner, Capital One, BAE Systems, KPMG. Now, the one thing to note is that for Meetup, it is most useful for community clubs as well as any open corporate clubs. If it's a closed corporate club, using Meetup is really not so useful because what you're trying to do is reach out to the public, right? The one thing to note is this next slide is, well, Capital One, BAE Systems, KPMG, they're all corporate clubs, but PMI WDC #1 is the 4th listing, and the 7th listing and the 9th listing. And what you see here is the 4th one is the Toastmasters website, exactly what Michelle said. But the 7th listing is Meetup. And the 9th listing is our actual website for our club. And one of the things that we have noticed when we ask folks, how did you find us? 7 times out of 10, they'll say, I found you via Meetup. And so while that answer may be very different for your club, for our club, Meetup has been the primary source of where we get guests. And I just wanted to show that to you. And so one thing you could do is just Google for your club. And just imagine if you were a guest that knew nothing about Toastmasters. You didn't even know that, as Michelle said, to go to the Toastmasters website, you didn't even know what that is, right? All you're looking for is Toastmasters club near, I don't know, Falls Church, Virginia, or near Ashburn, Virginia, or near wherever you live. And you just take a look, see what comes up. So I wanted to just show that to you, that these 3 things made it in the Google search. Now, once they find you in Meetup, it is very, very, very important to ask your club members to RSVP for that meeting. And here is an example of 2 clubs. And one of them, I changed the name to be XYZ Club, but it truly was back in May, I gave this presentation to a club and I used their information to a club. And so that one had 1 attendee. Our club at that time for our May 24th meeting had 8 attendees. I'm going to ask David Kirsten if he can unmute. And David, if you knew nothing about Toastmasters, you happen to see these 2 meetings one day away from each other. One club had only 1 attendee. The other club had 8 attendees. Which one would you tend to go to?
I think I'd go to the one that had 8.
And why is that, David?
Because it shows that people care enough to go to the meeting.
Yeah, exactly. People care enough to go to the meeting. And you never know if this one attendee was a person that had set up the meetup months and months ago. As it turns out, for this one club, this person wasn't even a club member anymore. So that's why it is really important to remind your club members to RSVP to the meetup, because just put yourself in a person's shoes that is not associated with Toastmasters at all. You look at these folks, I mean, you can see the little pictures of them, and you see Paula here, but you don't know Paula, right? And but you're exactly right. Just to have 8, there's safety in numbers. And I want to show you this next slide. That particular meeting for PMI WDC number 1, May 24th, 2022. We had 8 attendees that RSVP'd. But in actuality, 21 attendees attended that Toastmasters meeting that particular night. So what I wanted to show you on this particular slide is that for our club, we still, as much as we remind folks to RSVP, we still have some work to do, right? But 8 is certainly better than 1. And as many people that RSVP, it does help your club to attract new guests because there's safety in numbers. Are there any questions about what I wanted to show, the last slide and this slide?
Edmund, can you talk a little bit about the manage drop-down feature?
Sure. Let me do this. I am going to swap out my slide deck real quick and show you exactly what that is. I'm going to share my screen. Let me make sure. Oh, hold on. Let me make sure I'm going to show Meetup first. Okay. And I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. Okay. Under the managed, the only reason that I have the word managed on here because I'm one of the co-organizers for our Meetup group, or this account, as well as Paula. So Paula also has that same access to this button. And with this one, if I click it, I can contact the attendees. I can put a little tag mark, pin it. I can edit the event. I can copy it to make another event. I can cancel it if needed. And so those are just different options as a administrator for Meetup.
And editing is very helpful too, because let's say that your location, you have a last minute change, or at the last minute, perhaps you're going all virtual instead of being in person or being hybrid. You have the opportunity to let people know that there has been a change, and everyone on your list will automatically get notification to say this event has been changed.
Hey, can I have a callback question?
Pardon me?
Can I have a callback question? I want to go back to before,
Oh,
Rick
sure.
asked this
Yes,
question.
absolutely.
Yeah. Stand by.
Now, you were talking about people looking at the Meetup thing and finding out that, someone had 1 attendee, another one had 5 attendees.
Yes.
But if you do a Google search, it
Uh-huh.
doesn't tell you the attendees, right? So
No, it
why would
doesn't.
I want to use Meetup instead of just making sure that my club's listing comes up on the Google search?
Okay. Thank you, Narayan. So you're right. When you do Google search, it's not going to show you the attendees. It's all it's going to show you is what Google finds. The one thing about the attendees is that if I know nothing about PMI WDC and I sign up and it's a virtual, I sign up for the virtual portion of our meeting. The one thing that I still don't know is what is the Zoom link? And and that's one thing that I personally will do is once I see that there is somebody who RSVP to our meeting and that person is a guest, I will send via Meetup our Zoom link. And I do that for security reasons. I'm not going to blast it out to say, here's our Zoom link, right, to the public, because you never know what's going to happen. But if someone RSVPs, for me, that's the secret handshake, if you will, that
Yeah,
allows me
that's what,
to fill
yeah, that's what we
the
do
Zoom
when
link is.
they RSVP via Google as well. When they send us a contact us, the Google sends them to our webpage, and when they send us
Oh,
the,
yeah, right,
right?
and so so one of the things, Ryan, is that Paula's message and my message is not rely solely on Meetup. There's tons of other tools, but the one thing is that this tool, Meetup, for us, it works really well for us. 70% of our guests find us,
Right.
not
Right, I
via
know.
not via the website, but they find us via Meetup.
Right,
And
but
people,
did that always be the case? Because if my club has to, adopt Meetup, and so I mean, are we saying that, if you use Meetup and you will get the similar results? And
I don't know. All I'm telling you is this is what works for us.
Can
And
okay,
I
thanks.
can I chime in here for a moment?
yes, quickly, Ben, go ahead and ask your question.
When we have a alliance meeting, right? We use the same setting, but we use the Google Calendar.
Mm-hmm.
But we might use this, but for our alliance meeting, we use the Google Calendar.
okay, and that's
Okay.
fine. But
Meetup, if I could, Edmund, Meetup is a great tool for those who are already on Meetup for other reasons. Like I mentioned before, Meetup has meetings for every possible interest you may have. Traveling, hiking, crafts, languages, self-help, every possible type of group. So depending on what your own personal preferences are and the group that you're looking for, you may see Toastmasters coming up. Or if you happen to be on Meetup and your boss earlier in the day had said, you know what, perhaps you might want to check out Toastmasters and see if they can help you with some professional development, then you can easily go on Meetup. So Meetup is just one social media tool. It is certainly not the only one. But the other thing that, and we're going to get into this in a few minutes, Meetup allows you to keep track of who your guests are. It allows you to email them easily and notify them of, hey, we're so glad that you have an interest in our group. And it allows you to communicate easily. But we're going to get into that in just a few minutes.
right, thank you, Paula. All right, number 4. So Paula, all yours.
Yeah. So why use Meetup for Toastmasters? I think this is a really good question. And as I mentioned, Meetup is just one tool. It is not the only tool out there. But Meetup, what I love about Meetup is that it brings people to you. All right. You don't have to go onto Meetup and advertise, for example. You don't have to pay for advertising. If you're simply a group that is a part of Meetup, you are automatically part of a wider community. And that wider community now has access to your information. So Meetup is simply a tool. It is not the only social media function out there. There are others that you can use in other ways. But I think where Meetup is a little unique is the sense of how you can manage your events, how you can manage your meetings, if there are changes, if there are additions that you want to make. And also, I think it's very effective in terms of being able to quickly reach out to your guests, send them emails, send them follow-up messages, etc. So Meetup is a very effective tool.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
Does your event have to be free of charge?
I don't believe so. I don't know that there are any specific rules for that for Toastmasters. Are you talking about for something that's non-Toastmasters related?
Yes, just in general. Is it
Yes,
only
just
Meetup
yes,
only
just
for free things?
yes, just in general. And in fact, there are already lots of groups like groups who are going out to restaurants, for examples, singles groups, hiking groups. There are lots of groups that advertise, you know, that something is a particular fee. So yes, you can advertise groups that cost something. But what does Meetup do for a Toastmasters club? First of all, it enables you to advertise regular club meetings. And there's a way that you go into Meetup and simply set up your calendar. So the administrator doesn't have to go in for every single meeting. If you meet, say, the second and fourth Thursdays of the month at a specific time, or if you meet the first and third Saturdays in the morning at a specific time, you can go ahead and set your meetings up in advance. You're also able to advertise any special events. Perhaps your club is going to have a holiday party. Perhaps you're going to have an open house. Aside from your regular meeting schedule, where there's going to be a special speaker. So it enables you to advertise special events. As I alluded to earlier, I think one of the best features is it allows you to contact your guests. Edmund has done this in a very effective way for PMI WDC01. Whenever someone contacts our Meetup account and indicates that they're going to be a guest, Edmund has a stock letter or note that he sends out. And we're going to show this to you in a few minutes.
Right.
But he has a stock note that says, we really appreciate your interest in our club. This is our next meeting. This is the Zoom link. And he gives also a little bit of information about what our club is all about. Also, it allows great follow-up with your potential members. So for example, at our club meetings, we like to ask all of our guests, how did you find us? And as Edmund mentioned, most of our guests come to us through Meetup. If that's the case, then immediately after the meeting, we follow up and say, hey, Joe, it was really great to see you at our meeting. We really appreciated that you made the effort. Here's a membership application. We hope to see you again soon. So it allows for potential member follow-up. Also, what you can even do is you can even follow up with people who said that they were going to come visit, but they actually didn't. You can still follow up with them and say, hey, by the way, if you're still interested in improving your public speaking and leadership skills, please join us.
Okay. Second here. Okay. So what does District 29 provide you? So District 29 has a license for Meetup for all of its clubs. If you choose to use that, and if your club don't already have a Meetup page offered by District 29, just send an email to me. It goes prm@tmd29.org, comes to me. I'll set it up, and whoever that point of contact is, I'll work with you to make sure that you have at least 2 people who would be administrators for your club. And you can do the same thing that I do for PMI WDC, which is simply to reach out and respond back to those guests that said they're coming to your meeting. You can provide them with a Zoom link. You can answer any questions they have about your club or about Toastmasters in general. So, and then you're on your way to essentially maintain for your own club the Meetup page. So it's provided free of charge by District 29. For PMIWDC, it's just a little bit of a special case because we purchased our own license. And the reason we did that was we were using Meetup several years before District 29 decided to use to provide a license for everybody. So we just kept it, and we had enough funds for in our treasury to just pay for it ourselves. So, any questions about this slide? Under District 29, this is what the different meetup groups are, or this is how it's arranged, and it's by geography. You see here, there's a McLean, Tyson's, Vienna, essentially Division C clubs within that group. You have another one, which is Chantilly, Manassas, Front Royal, Warrington, Culpeper in that group. And then you have folks that are along I-95 from Alexandria to, I think, I'm not sure where that is, but it's in that area. And then you also have Reston, Herndon, Loudoun County. And then the final group is the Springfield, Burke, Merrifield, Fairfax, Oakton, and Fair Oaks. So if by chance you look at your club, we know that our club is in Fairfax, you look in this group and you just do a search and you don't find your club, then just email me and we'll set you up one within District 29 and off you go. Any questions about the meetup groups and how it's laid out? Okay, next slide. All right. It is so important. Not only, I mean, I may mention to you that it's very important to have your club members RSVP to show that it's an active club. The other thing is very important is to have accurate information on Meetup. And I am going to ask Deborah Campbell. Deborah Campbell, if you can just put yourself off mute. And if by chance you found this club, XYZ club that was on 123 Main Street, anywhere in the United States, and you go to that place, only to find nobody's there. What goes through your mind?
I would be very annoyed.
You'd be very annoyed. What are the chances of you ever joining that particular Toastmasters club?
They just reduced by quite a percentage, but I guess it would depend on what my other options were. If I
Right.
really wanted to be a part of the Toastmasters
Yeah.
club,
Great.
it would depend on, if this was just one in several that I was looking at, then I would
Mhm.
probably dismiss this one. But if it was maybe the only one that fit my schedule, then I might try to do a little more digging to see, what went wrong.
Right. And so that's why it's very important. Now, let me ask, I'm going to ask Bruce Coletti. I know he just turned away as I was saying his name. Bruce, if you can be off mute for a little bit, if that happened to you, what would go through your mind if you went to 123 Main Street anywhere in the United States, only to find nobody there?
Well, personally, I found myself in a situation like that when I was in Austin in the late 1990s. I
Wow.
hung around for 15 minutes and
Uh-huh.
only one person showed up. That person was one of the multimillionaire angel investors there in Austin. So me personally, I would wait for a half hour or so.
Okay.
But normally somebody would just cut out, but I'm a patient person. I would wait.
Okay. Excellent.
The other thing that I want to bring up on this slide is that Meetup allows you to describe your meeting, whether it's virtual or in person. And for example, PMI WDC01 meetings, we have them twice a month. One of our meetings is only virtual, and one of our meetings is hybrid. So Meetup allows us the flexibility of indicating what is a hybrid or what is a virtual meeting and what is not.
Exactly. Okay. Let me ask one other question to, let's see, someone who has their camera off. Irene Tang, if I can ask you to turn on your camera and unmute yourself. Irene, if you went to a Toastmasters club and you didn't know anything about Toastmasters and you went to this place only to find nobody there, generally, I mean, as Deborah said, and maybe as Bruce said, you may have waited, but then if nobody shows up, then chance pretty good that you're not going to be joining that particular Toastmasters club. What are the chances of you joining Toastmasters, just in general? Maybe no, Irene. Karen Wentz, I'm going to ask you that question.
Well, there are lots of Toastmasters clubs, so I
Yeah.
would find out, and I would definitely look for another one,
Yeah.
hopefully in my area. But actually, I would go to any club. I'm a member of a club right now in Woodbridge. It's miles away from my home, and I've been a member for 2.5 years. I've never attended a meeting, but it's a great club.
Yeah. Great answer. Thank you so much. So anyways, I wanted to share with you why accurate information is so very important in your meetup, and not only meetup, but also your website, as well as Toastmasters.org. When they go find a club, just make sure that you got accurate information, because if someone was a Toastmasters and wanted to get information, certainly there's for those that know a lot of people, they can figure out where the meeting is. But for those guests that knew nothing about Toastmasters, first time ever, they don't know a soul in Toastmasters at all, and they said, for my New Year's resolution, I'm going to improve my public speaking skills and improve my leadership skills. I'm going to go to this Toastmasters club, only to find nobody there, right? So you get the picture. Okay. Next slide. Responding to guests. And this is one that Paula made a mention of, as far as whenever, for PMI WDC #1, whenever I see that there is a guest that RSVP'd, I will send them this message via Meetup. Now, what Meetup does is that it shields the guest and myself from their email address. And that's perfectly fine, because it's for safety reasons. But I am able to send them a message. And this is the message that I send. It's a canned message, and the only thing I change is the name. Oops, sorry. Let me do this. The name, and when our next meeting is. And at that time, back in May, we were only going through Zoom, or having our meetings through Zoom. So I would provide that person with their Zoom link. And there were a couple of articles about our club. It's just a little bit of background information. Apologies. And that's it. So it's a canned email. I mean, it's a canned message. Just change a few things, send it off. But what I've also found out is, not only is it important to acknowledge those guests via Meetup to say, welcome, you're in the right place. We're thrilled that you're interested in joining us as a guest. But the other parameter, which is very, very important, is timeliness. As soon as you can, if you're the administrator, as soon as you can, send that message out. And I'm going to ask, why is that important? Linda Muller, why is timeliness important when you are a guest and don't know anything about Toastmasters, or someone who's just a guest who RSVP to your club?
Well, there's an obvious interest by that person as a guest, and by having an immediate reply, you're helping reinforce the impression that you're on the ball, you're a club that has somebody there that's ready to respond, that there's a human on the other side of the web page, or of the meetup. It's a real positive impression to have a quick reply to something, because everybody's always expecting no reply in this day and age of customer service.
Exactly. Now, people may wonder, wow, is this too much? I mean, is this going to be too much on my on my time to just continually respond back to guests? The answer is no. Here's why. The message is already canned. I copy and paste, update the name, update the day of our meeting, and we send it off. And if I get a lot of guests, well, what a great problem to have then, right? But but in reality, I mean, for me, how much time does it take for between a 2-week period between one meeting to another, 2 weeks later, the next meeting? It's not that much. It's probably 10 minutes, but it's well worth it because the guests come. I mean, our club requires no open houses. People come to us, and what a great problem to have. And so I want that same thing to happen to your clubs. That people just come to your club, and that you don't have to do a lot of open houses just to attract members. I mean, certainly open houses are helpful, but this is, as Paula said, one avenue, one tool where folks just come to you. Okay. Any questions about slide number 8 about responding to guests?
Yes, Edmund.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
This is Abbas Hamidi.
Yes, Abbas, how are you?
All right, thank you. Yeah, my problem is inviting the guests, but then no members show up. We had that problem at one of our meetings. I invited the guest, and then she came, and then there was only like 2 or 3 members over there, and I was embarrassed, kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
But
okay.
How do you deal with that problem? That's my concern. I mean, inviting the guests, and no members show up.
That's well, I mean, that's not anything that Meetup's going to really solve for you. I mean, the purpose of Meetup is attracting guests. Paula?
Edmund, if I could, yes.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, Abbas, that gets back to club quality. And that is when the club officers need to ask yourselves, are we holding meetings that are meaningful for people, that are worth our members' times? The other thing is, one of the things that Edmund also does that might be helpful in this case, Edmund will often send out an email to the group and say, hey, we've got 6 guests RSVP'd, or we've got 2 guests RSVP'd. And I think that there's 2 reasons for doing that. Number one, it makes sure that our current members, whenever we see that we have a guest, that we enthusiastically greet that guest and welcome them to our meeting, whether they're coming virtually or whether they're going to be in person. The other reason to do that is to let our members know, look, we have guests who are expected to come. We need your participation in order to make it a good meeting. So that's possibly a tool that you could use is, if you have someone RSVP'd, let your other club members know so that they know that a guest is coming. But other than that, and we can talk separately, Abbas, we can talk offline. But I think that you probably need to look at your club quality and to see if you're holding meetings that people feel fulfilled and that they enjoy. That's a different issue.
But I usually in my emails, when I reply to the guest, I put the president of club in the email too. But I guess afterwards, I should let the club know too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think Rick had a question.
Yes, everyone has obviously a very busy schedule. Time is limited, time is valuable. So I wanted to ask Edmund, how long does it take you to message all of these guests that express an interest in PMI WDC number 1?
About 10 minutes. Total. Wow. Yeah, it's quick. I mean, it's copy. Actually, I'll copy like for instance, this email to Jessica or this message. I'll copy it I'll put it on Word just so I can edit it, and then I'll copy that and I'll put it to Sneha or to Lawrence or whoever's next, or whoever's the next guest. And boom, just like that.
You don't
So
have to invent the wheel every time.
Right. And I just figured that this message is very positive. I mean, to start off with, hey, we're thrilled. We are so thrilled that you are interested in our club. And here's a little bit about our club. And here's our next meeting. Here's our Zoom link if it's a virtual meeting.
And
just
likewise,
invite
you
them.
can,
Yeah. Go
you
ahead,
can
Paul.
also have canned follow-up messages. You know, thank you so much for attending our meeting as a guest. We're glad that you found us through Meetup. Again, you don't have to invent the wheel. Many clubs already have sort of canned messages that they use for email. Well, this is just a very similar thing. You can probably use those same messages and just tweak it a little bit for Meetup. But there's no reason to rewrite every single email or every single message to a new person.
Next slide. The reason I brought up this slide is that depending on the administrator's permission, their access, some guests have set it up so that they can only receive emails or messages from organizers. And so there's a period of time when I was not an organizer or co-organizer yet for our Meetup group, and I couldn't send this guest a message. So I would end up just sending an email to Paula and texting her, hey, copy this and send it, because I knew that time it was Paula and Najat that from our club who were either an organizer or co-organizers. Then it got to a point of, all right, I think I'm trustworthy enough. Paula, can you just make me an organizer? I wanted to bother you. Just give me this permission, and then I can just send it myself. So that's one thing to note. And one thing that we'll make sure is that there's folks from your club that are an organizer or co-organizer, just so that you can send messages to those people that and tighten their privacy.
And it's also a good idea to have more than one person anyway, because one person may be in very important meetings that they can't take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to send a response, or maybe they're on vacation, or they're just simply unavailable for a period of time. And Irene asked a very good question, Edmund. She says, you mentioned earlier that 2 members can manage the Meetup group. So when one guest gets a reply from a member, will another member get to see the reply too? That's a very good question.
If the organizers, that's a great question. I don't know. We'll find out.
We'll find that out, and we'll get back. We'll get back to you whenever we send out the slide deck. So that's an excellent question. Thank you, Irene.
Linda has her hand raised.
Thank you. You had mentioned earlier the importance of making sure club members respond to attending the Meetup meeting. That's a good thing. How do you just tell everybody, hey, look, folks, you better go online and attend all these meetings in advance so that it looks good for us? No, seriously, how do you do that?
Okay, so Linda, let me show you real time on how I do it. Everyone has a different method, but here's me. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Let me see. Let me look for it real quick. Numbers. And I sent it yesterday. Okay, here we go. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. This is not what I want to share. 1 second here. Okay. I think everyone can see this is my email. Everyone can see it? Yes. Okay. So it's just an email from me as VPE to our club members. Hey, reminder. Hey, we're not meeting on Valentine's Day. We're meeting on the week after. Okay. But this is what I do. I mean, just say, hey, friendly reminder, RSVP on Meetup. That's it. So in our case, what we do is we have volunteers for roles, and we don't assign roles, we volunteer. So here's the other one is just go in and volunteer for your role. But it's just a 2 lines email saying, please, friendly reminder, RSVP. Now the other thing too is when we RSVP, it's typically the upcoming meeting. We're not asking people to RSVP 2 meetings ahead, 3 meetings ahead. I mean, even though we have a few that do that, but the majority is this upcoming meeting is the most important one. So even if you know that, like in our case, our next meeting is the 21st, which is what, 2 weeks away. And so during these next 2 weeks is when I try to get folks to remind folks to RSVP. Now, one other thing too, I wanted to show you since I'm on the screen is we've been trying to have hybrid meetings, and we meet at Pimmit Library. That first meeting that we had, we were only allowed, because of scheduling, these small conference room. A small conference room only allowed 12 people. And we didn't know how many people were going to show up. So what we did was we created a second meetup card, if you will. And I just said, okay, for this one, it is meeting in person. And for this one is meeting virtually. It's the same meeting, but I, as well as others, want to know who's going to show up. And if it's over 12, well, that's going to be a problem, right? We can only allow 12 people. And that's assuming that all 12 actually show up. So that's why this is one technique that we did, and it's worked well for us. And others that may have hybrid may have different solutions. Again, this worked for us. Go ahead.
The other way to use that, if club members RSVP that they're attending, and the TMOD or the VPE is looking to fill the agenda, they might say, hey, Paul, I noticed that you're coming to the meeting on Tuesday. Could you please sign up for this role? I mean, that's just one option. You certainly don't have to do that, but it's simply a tool.
Right.
You want to go ahead and share your screen again, Edmund?
Yeah, I'll share my screen again. Okay. All right. Paula, this one's yours.
I don't see it.
Oh, you don't see it. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure. What happened here? Let me share my screen.
Do you have to?
Okay, I got it.
There we go. There we go.
Let me make it slideshow. Okay, all yours.
Okay. This is a great screen to think about. And this is one of the hangups that I find that people have with Meetup. If you look at PMI WDCO1's Meetup page, I think we have something like over 450 followers. Okay. Now, do 450 guests attend our meetings? No, of course not. So there are some people who say, well, why bother? If you have all these people who are following you, but they're not actually attending meetings, what is the point? And for that, I have a couple things. First of all, what we do find is that people who are interested in Toastmasters don't necessarily commit to doing it immediately. So they might follow your club for a while. They might follow Toastmasters on social media. And then a year after they've followed your page, as we have found out, people have said, well, I actually found you last year, but I'm just getting around to it now. Okay, so realize that even if they're not actually all attending your meetings, they're getting notification about your club. Your club is going to be in their minds so that when they are in fact ready and able to commit to Toastmasters, they're going to remember you. But the biggest reason to not get hung up about the number of followers, and in this case, there's 1,874 members. If only 1% of all of those followers actually joined, only 1%, that's 18 new members. Now, we all know that for DCP goals, that each club is supposed to bring in 8 new members year after year. So in this case, if only 0.5% of these members actually join your Toastmasters club, you would have 9 new members. So I think with Meetup, you need to adjust your expectations that it's not that 400 or 500 people or 1,000 people are going to actually be attending your meetings. It's all about getting your name out there. And for those people who are seriously interested and willing to commit to Toastmasters, they already know who you are. So just think about the numbers, that if you already have a Meetup page, for example, and you have 200 people who are following you. Well, if you have 1% of those 200 people who follow you, hey, that's better than nothing. And especially in the case of, remember, if you're using the District 29 Meetup page, you're not paying anything. PMIWDC01 is a little bit different, as Edmund mentioned, because we've been using Meetup for several years now. But in terms of using it now with District 29, you don't have to pay anything. So Meetup is simply a way that brings people to you. Go ahead with the next screen. Now, here are some of the realities, and I think that this is important to understand. Not everyone who RSVPs to a meeting will actually show up. And that goes for both members and guests. Not every guest who shows up will become a club member. Although I have to say, in the case of PMIWDC01, the majority, in fact, do. Not every club member who RSVPs not every club member will necessarily RSVP, but they'll still show up to the meeting. And that's okay too, all right? And the other thing that happens on occasion is that someone RSVPs during the meeting, after the meeting has already started. But of course, by that time, it's kind of late, and it's probably not realistic to expect that someone's going to get back to them during the meeting. But if that's the case, if Edmund sees a message from someone, Edmund can always send a more personalized message. It says, "Hi, I see that you tried to get into our most recent meeting. I'm sorry we missed you, but here's the information for the next meeting." So all of these scenarios present an opportunity to follow up with someone if that's what you want to do.
Right. Just want to add on to what Paula said, that last bullet about someone who RSVP an hour before or maybe even during the meeting. That problem is more apparent, as you can imagine, if it's through Zoom, right? If it's if they want to connect via Zoom, because certainly if they come in late during the in portion piece, doesn't really matter because they're here. But if they are RSVPing and because they don't have the Zoom link yet, right? So you have a guest that wanted to join via Zoom, but no one saw their email yet. And so they're left hanging. So it happens from time to time. I see, Ben, you have your hand up.
So can they, I have a question. Like, do you guys for the DC whatever thing, do you guys use Google Calendar also, or it has to be Meetup as well?
Okay, so we for PMIWDC, we also use Google Calendar, and here's why. I always lose track of what is the Zoom link, right? And so if I put the Zoom link, and we already know that for this upcoming Toastmaster year, we had the same Zoom link. I'm just gonna put on Google Calendar, put everyone's put all of our club members on there, send it out, it's on their calendar. So it makes it very, very easy for them. Yvette, I see that you have your hand up.
Hi, Edmund. Yes, I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
Let me see. There we go. I was curious about how you're able to, on Meetup, are you able to differentiate between who's a club member and who's a guest? And I asked that because I think I saw when you shared your screen, your notifications that go out to the Meetup group, and
Right.
you provide the Zoom link or
Right.
the
Right.
meeting information. So if your guests are always receiving that, then how do you incentivize them to become a club member? Does that make sense?
I think so. Let me try to answer it and then certainly ask me any follow-up questions. So our club is a pretty big club. We have about 33, 34 club members. That's I think in all of District 29, that's one of the largest club. It's up there anyways. But having said that, I know the club members' names. And I know that if Yvette signs up as to RSVP, I know that she's not a club member of PMIWDC. So it alerts me to say, I'm going to send her a message. So Yvette, hopefully that part answers your question as far as knowing who are the guests and who are club members. As far as incentivizing club members to RSVP, I don't know. I mean, it's more of just reminding. I mean,
Yes.
at the end of every meeting, just to we ask who is our next Toastmaster of the day, and sometimes I'll remember to say, hey, remember to RSVP, or sometimes just via my email, or the Toastmaster of the day will send out an email a week in advance of our club saying, hey, we have some roles that still need to be filled, or if you have a speech you want to give, sign up, and don't forget to RSVP to Meetup. Thank goodness that we've got a pretty good number that regularly RSVPs, and so that's always a work in progress to embed that in everyone's mind. So Yvette, did that answer your question?
It does. I guess one of the screens that you showed,
Sure.
there it is. Then you just
Okay.
passed it. It says members. It says about 1,800 plus.
18. Oh, okay. So
That's why I was asking,
Oh, okay.
how do you know who's a guest and
Oh,
who's
okay.
a member if you have
Great.
like 1,800 plus?
Okay, I understand your question now. The 1,800 plus that we showed, they don't get anything from me directly. The people that you see here on the left-hand side is over time, 145 days ago or 144 days ago. These are people who RSVP to our meetup meeting, to a specific meeting. And so when when their names show up, I will send them a note. Let me stop sharing on, let me stop sharing on this and I'll show you an example, a live example. So this, oops, hold on. I don't want, 1 second here. 1 second. And I see Irene has her hand up, and Irene, stand by. I'll get to you right after I show this example. If I can simply not, okay. A little bit. Just one example. All right. So we have here our upcoming meeting. And I know that David and Jim are guests. David, let me move things around a little bit, is one that, oh, wrong one here. Let me exit out of this one and log into my, one second here. There we go. To my messages. and I send David an email, actually 1 day ago. And again, you see the typical email, right? We're thrilled, there are 3 members. And I know that he planned to attend in person. So I changed it, the wording so that, hey, we'll see at Pimment Library. And we have a couple of guest speakers that particular day. And that's it. Just a simple message. Now, there's also another person who had also RSVP'd. Back again. But in this case, he found us not via Meetup. This person found us via Toastmasters.org. And I sent him an email. He wrote back. I mean, the email I sent him was, hey, go to Meetup and just sign up. And Jim H, just today, signed up. And so there's no need for me to send him again because he already got my other email. So, Yvette, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right,
And-
thank you.
And also the nice thing about the Meetup, they'll show your upcoming meetings. So it allows a potential guest, and what happens often is that someone says that they're going to come. They don't show up because maybe they have to work late. Maybe something came up at home and they just couldn't attend. But they're looking for us for the next meeting because they still are interested in us. So the Meetup page will not only show what the current meeting is coming up, but also what our meetings are in the future. And Edmund mentioned in our case this month, we typically would meet on Valentine's Day. Well, we've opted not to meet on Valentine's Day. We're going to meet a week later. So this enables us to advertise to any potential guest out there to say, hey, we've moved our club meeting and our next meeting is going to be February 21st, not the 14th. So it allows flexibility in showing future events for anyone who is looking to rearrange their schedule.
Irene, you have your hand up.
Hi, Edmund. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I have a couple questions. First of all, do you know if the Meetup, the mobile app is a pay app or is a free app for download?
I don't know.
Okay. The second question is, for example, like B2 Toaster, we are in B2 Toaster, and we are interested in the Meetup platform, but if in case we want to join the Meetup, I mean to start up a Meetup group, is there any training for us to learn how to, is that
How to use it?
how to use it
So
or
sure. So
yeah.
I'll say this. This session today is part of training. But Irene, you know me. Just send me an email. I'll help you get started.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, anyone during this call, it's really hard to get into the actual weeds of, what buttons do you press, what your settings are about. It's not really possible to get into that tonight, but that would be a perfect one-on-one session that Edmund or any member of his team would be happy to have with you or anyone else who's interested. Absolutely.
So the last question that I have is, in case for example, we decided to go for it, and then what kind of items that you think we need to prepare before we set up? Yeah.
Things that you already know. You just need to know when your next meeting is. You need to know where you're going to meet if you're going to meet in person. You'll also need to know your Zoom link. And what I would prefer are 2 points of contact for your club. And that's it.
And if something changes, so let's say that you set up your meeting schedule for the next 3 months, and because of scheduling issues or maybe a holiday or something, you decide, well, one of those meetings is not going to be on that date. We're going to change it. You simply change it. You edit the event on Meetup. And anyone who is part of your Meetup page will get notification that that meeting has changed. So you don't have to send out a separate email to everybody on Meetup saying, hey, by the way, if you were interested in coming to our meeting on March 14th, we're not actually meeting then, we're going to meet on March 21st. There's no need for that. Meetup does all that work for you in just by simply editing your event.
Can I
Deborah,
have one more one
go
more
ahead.
question,
Go ahead,
please?
Irene.
Sorry.
Yes.
The things that I pop up is do we need to prepare a homepage, that kind of things, just like the website, and then so that we can introduce our club?
You
Not really. It's
no.
not. You should have, excuse me. You should write a paragraph or two, but it's not the same as like your website, your club website, where you have to have a lot of content in order to make it interesting. On Meetup, you should have a basic description of what your group is, what you do. If you have a general meeting schedule, like we meet the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month, but it does not require you to come up with a lot of content.
Okay. So is that meaning that everyone who log into the Meetup need to have an account?
Yes. Yeah, you do
Okay.
need an account, because that way if you RSVP, they'll know it's Irene Tang. Or if Deborah logs in and she RSVPs, everyone will know it's Deborah Campbell.
Right. And as we've mentioned before, Meetup is just one social media outlet. Not everyone is on Meetup, just like not everyone is on Facebook. Not everyone is on Instagram.
Right.
Not everyone uses every single social media outlet out there. But one advantage of Meetup over some of the other platforms is that it brings people to you once they indicate that their interests are in public speaking or professional or personal development. It brings people to you. In addition to, I'm sorry, in addition to if they just want to find you out of the blue.
Yeah.
But I know that on my Meetup page, for example, I get emails every once in a while that say, hey, these are your meetups for the week. And they're geared towards my specific interests. So if I'm a member, I'm going to get that kind of email. But let's say that I all of a sudden want to know how to do hula hooping. I can go on the Meetup website and look up hula hoop clubs in my area and see what it says under hula hoop clubs. So people come to you separately, or people can be brought to you through their interests.
Thank you, Paula. Deborah has her hand up.
Yes, thank you, Edmund. Is other than to build your outward face as far as, oh, we're going to have 12 people attend and beat out, maybe somebody who only has 1 or 2 people attend for your members, is there some other critical reason that they need to sign up, RSVP via Meetup?
Oh, you mean club members to RSVP? The other reason why we ask folks to RSVP is just so that for the part that is in person, since we have to set up chairs and tables, we just want to know how many people are going to show up. Yeah.
Right. And whether or not we're going to have enough space, like Edmund mentioned, there's only 12 max in the small conference room. If we have 15 people sign up, then that would be a sign for Edmund to email a couple of us and say, hey, you know, we're getting a little too full. Would you mind going in virtually? That has not been an issue for us thus far, but we've only started in-person meetings again this past fall. So we're still in that infancy phase of doing virtual and hybrid meetings.
Okay. Karen Wentz, I saw that you had your hand up for a little bit. Did you still have a question?
Well, I think that somebody partially answered it. I was going to ask you if there was, if you found that free Toast Host was supplementary to, and I learned yes.
Yes. Yeah, our club, PMIWDC, we also use free Toast Host. We use it in a way for members to sign up and volunteer for roles for the upcoming meetings. That's our main. The other reason is it provides us with a distribution list of our club members. So we are very easily able to send out an email to all club members.
And also the big reason for using free Toast Host is that when people go on to the Toastmasters.org website to the Find a Club function, they can choose a link which takes them directly to our club website, which in our case is free Toast Host. So yes, that's also a very important communication tool for us as well.
Okay. And your club, is it 01 at the end or really 01?
01.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. A little bit of history on why it was 01. At 17 years ago, when this club was found, before I even joined, there was some thought that there would be a PMI WDC number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, so on and so forth. But then the running joke is nobody wanted to be number 2. So
can I join your club?
Absolutely, anyone can join our club.
Yes.
Yes. Let's go to the last screen. I think we have we're almost done, folks.
Yes.
Hey, also, I have to go, guys. It was good to see y'all. Ken, I will see you at the next meeting. It was good to see y'all. Stay warm and good night, everybody.
Thank you, Ben. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Paula, number 11.
So this works for us. All right. We, first of all, make sure that our meetup information is correct. Because as we have seen recently through a recent experiment, when the clubs don't have correct contact information, either on their meetup page, their club website, through the Toastmasters.org website, then it just makes it almost impossible for people to find you. So just like any other information avenue, it's really important to make sure that the information is accurate on Meetup. As we've already talked about encouraging all club members to RSVP and why that's important. We only provide Zoom link for guests via private messaging. We do not encourage Zoom bombers by simply posting our link for the world to see, okay? And frankly, we've had very good results with that as well. We don't have any issues with Zoom bombers. People who contact our club who are interested in visiting seem to be genuinely interested in finding out more about us. You can, what we recommend is that the administrator looks at Meetup 1 day before the meeting and 1 hour prior to the meeting, just because it gives the administrator an opportunity to catch any last minute people who may have RSVP'd. We follow up with RSVPs who don't show. Sorry, we missed you. Here's our next meeting. Hope you can come again. And this is effective because people very often have every intention of coming, but something at the last minute, perhaps it's traffic, perhaps it's a situation at home, Perhaps they're working on a work project that keeps them later in the day. Very importantly, make sure that you're following up with RSVPs who do show. Thank you so much for coming. Remember, our next meeting is going to be on such and such date. We'd love it for you to come. And oh, by the way, here's a membership application that we're going, if you're interested in joining us, because we always ask our guests at meetings if they want to join our club. And finally, and I think Edmund can talk a little bit more about this, Meetup gives you the opportunity to leverage your list. And Edmund, if you could talk a little bit more about what that entails.
Sure. Whenever we create a new item in Meetup, for instance, by default, everything's virtual. And the reason that is because we are very dependent on Pimmet Library and having a conference room open. As it turns out, our meeting on the 28th of February, all the rooms are booked because Pimmet Library is using it to prepare for their book sale. So nobody has availability or has the ability to reserve a conference room. And so the in-person portion, it's all dependent of whether or not we get that conference room. So when I create that new card, that new Meetup, everyone in that group gets notified that there's a new event on the in this case, the 14th of March, for example. Right? So they get notified, and then that's one way that this one very small, well, 461 people, they get personally notified that there is a new event that was just scheduled. The same thing happens regardless of whether it's Toastmasters. And I'm a member of a photography group, and I get the email, hey, there's a new outing to go to Great Falls on this day at this time, and I'm interested. I say I'm going. If I'm not, I just ignore it. So that's leveraging that Meetup list. Number 12, Paula.
So next steps, if your club is interested in setting up a Meetup page with District 29, the first thing you need to do is identify preferably 2 administrators for your club. Contact Edmund and his team. He'll go ahead and set up the page, and he'll also find out what kind of training you need. There may be some people who are already very familiar with Meetup because perhaps they use it personally with another group, and there may be others who are not quite so sure. So regardless of what your understanding level is, Edmund and his team will help you feel confident about Meetup. Once you get the page set up, that's when you're going to schedule your meetings and events, open houses, special speakers, special dinners. One of the other things that we do for PMI is on months that have 5 Tuesdays, the 5th Tuesday, we go out for dinner. Okay, so we're going to talk about that as well. Review your guest lists on Meetup and contact accordingly. Now, obviously, when you're first starting out, it's going to take a little bit of time for you to gather some followers. That's perfectly fine. But once you get this rolling, once you get this set up, you'll find that there's little or no maintenance needed for Meetup. That's the beauty of it. Takes a little bit of time up front, but once that's done, it really runs itself. The most important thing is to keep your contact information current. As I mentioned, it's really important to maintain accurate information. So those will be your next steps if you're interested in getting your club set up on Meetup. Okay. Do we have any additional questions? I have written a few down that we didn't have answers for, and Edmund and I will make sure that we get those answers out to everyone. We'll follow up and find out what the answers are. But does anyone else have any additional questions that they'd like to ask?
Yes, Marcia.
Marcia, yes.
Yes, hi. My question is, okay, you mentioned, Edmund, that you all use Free Toast Hosts and people, to go in and sign up for, members to go in and sign up, like for the roles. And that's in essence, you're creating an agenda for each meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so for people who RSVP, the guests who RSVP Meetup, how do they get the agendas? Do you all send them the agendas, or?
Believe it or not, we
don't.
We don't send them the agenda.
Okay.
But what we do, because if we know that there are guests in the meeting, during the meeting, we will explain here's what happens. Here's what's going to happen next. We're going to explain to them that a regular Toastmasters meeting is broken up into 3 parts: the prepared speeches, something that's called table topics, and something that's called evaluation. So we kind of walk them through that instead of relying on the agenda. Is that the right thing? I don't know. I mean, maybe yes, maybe no, but that's what we've been doing.
And for example, I was the TMOD at our last meeting. I participated in person. I brought a few extra copies of our agenda with me because I was a TMOD, so I was the one responsible for filling out the agenda. And I just decided on my own to bring a few extra copies. The other thing that we easily can do electronically is drop it into chat on Zoom. I mean, that's a very easy thing to do. So you can always do that for anyone who attends virtually.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Irene, did you have a question, or did you just happen to leave your hand up? Okay. Rhonda is next.
Hi, Edmund Joe, I will reach out to you. I tried to set up something on Meetup and I think I've done it incorrectly. So I'm going to reach out to you about that. And then also for the District 29 Meetup page, I know that you talked about making sure that it's inviting and all that type of stuff, but the District 29 Meetup page in general, when you go out there and just take a look at it, it just looks very not inviting. Is there anything in the pipeline to kind of refresh the District 29 Meetup page?
And we probably should. I haven't devoted any time to revamping it, but you're right. It needs a little spiffing up.
Okay. All right then. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'm going to.
Actually, I think Karen has.
Karen.
I just wanted to thank you, Paula, and you, Edmund, for a very detailed overview, if I can put it that way, of Meetup. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen.
You're welcome. And of course, if any questions pop up in the future, just shoot us an email. If I don't know the answer, or if Edmund doesn't know the answer, we'll find someone who does. But I really appreciate everyone's efforts for coming out tonight. We hope that this has been valuable for us. And I believe that our district director, Rick Taylor, wanted to say a few words, and he will go ahead and close us out for the evening.
Well, thanks so much, Paula. And I just wanted to echo Karen's remarks. A huge thank you to you and Edmund Joe for teaming up to host this very important workshop on Meetup. Meetup is such a critical tool for us in District 29, those of us that are a part of open clubs. I just want to humbly request everyone that's on this Zoom call to consider leveraging the tool that is Meetup. If you're not actively doing so already, please do reach out to Edmund Joe. He's more than happy to meet with you and get you set up and make sure that your club is taking advantage of Meetup. It's really not that difficult to get a grasp of. And best of all, it's not that time consuming. I mean, this is an opportunity for our clubs to suddenly have a host of new guests joining the meeting. Think about how the quality of your meetings might change if you had 5 more people show up every single meeting. And you heard Edmund say it only took him about 10 minutes to send out messages to 8 people that RSVP'd. So please do take advantage of this. And I believe that the recording of today's session is going to be available on the District 29 YouTube page, as well as the main page of our District 29 website. We actually now have a videos section on our website. So please do be on the lookout for this video, take advantage of it, and put the word out about the importance of Meetup. Let's get our clubs actively engaged, leveraging this tool and taking advantage of the expertise that our public relations manager, Edmund Joe, offers. So thank you all for attending, and a huge round of applause one more time for Paula and Edmund. Well done, guys. Woo!